Hello and welcome to this session in which we will work with the last three controls of the Center for Internet Security. In the prior sessions, we looked at 15 different controls. In this session, we would look at the last three, which are application software security, control incidents response management, and penetration testing. Just like with the previous session, we would look at each control. What's the main purpose of it? What does it entails? What do you need to know about this control in order to be able to answer a multiple choice question on the CPA exam? And as always, I will show you some safeguards. You just want to be familiar with those safeguards just to kind of get a good idea of how these controls are used in the real world. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. Starting with Control 16, Application Software Security. Well, what are we discussing here? Well, software security. Specifically, what do we need to do? We want to make sure our software are secured. Now, sometime we might build our own software, sometime we might purchase it. Regardless, the objective of this control is to manage the security life cycle of an in-house developed, sometimes we develop it inside, hosted, our software could be hosted, or purchased to prevent, detect, and remediate security weakness before they can impact the company, the enterprise. Now, applications, phone applications, web applications, they are user-friendly interfaces for data management. This is how we communicate with customers. However, because of that, applications are a target for attackers that try to exploit the app or the website. Guess what? Executing complex network hacks. Because we put our application out there, well, then it's subject to attack. So application security software becomes crucial for companies, especially those that are handling sensitive data. And they want to make sure they control resource access. People cannot get in. And this is why in Control 6, we talked about account management, credentials, making sure not everyone have the same access, and we have different access authorization. Also about Control 6, as we hardened for hackers to obtain contact information or account information, they will try to exploit application vulnerabilities, because the easiest way to attack you is to get the admin account. That's it, it's done. We don't need to write any software, inject any codes or anything. So modern apps, they operate in a complex environment, and what happens is they run on platform and they might use existing codes. Usually they don't start the application from scratch. And what attackers try to do, they will try to exploit. They will try to take advantage of those existing codes because those are common to all applications. Also, application vulnerabilities, it could stem from factors like poor design, the programmer made a coding error, weak authentication, we're not authenticating the users, or we did not test it enough. So application and websites, simply put, they can be exploited to steal credentials, data, or try to install malware on your devices. Also within this realm, we have to talk about SaaS, software as a service company, because what we're doing these days is we are using a third-party SaaS, potentially hosted globally, present enterprise with unknown risk due to limited visibility into the security practices. So sometimes we don't buy the software, we don't develop it, we use it from a third party. We basically rent the software. So guess what? The software is as protected as that third party. So enterprises customizing such platform should adhere to CIS control as they would in in-house development. Simply put, they'll have to impose on the SaaS the same controls that they impose on themselves. Why? Because they are renting from them. So they are relying on their security. Now, what do we have to know about this control? This control usually don't belong to IG1 group because the enterprises in this group uses usually off-the-shelf or open software, open source software. So what you need to do is they might supplement it with minor custom coding for apps or website. If you are an IG1 group, what you should do, you should follow CIS control guidance because you're taking the software as is. So there's not much you can do. Make sure to follow the CIS and best practices as defense measure to effectively defend yourself, defend the software from common cybersecurity threat. Now, IG2 groups, they rely on some custom web or native code application, which they need a little bit more work because they're customizing the software. They're making changes to it. And IG3, obviously, they make major improvement in custom software. They host it in the cloud. They integrated with third-party vendors. So they have more work to do. What I'm trying to say is you're going to see when we look at the safeguards, nothing belongs to IG1 because IG1, they use a software that's already completed. As long as they adhere to the CIS, that's the best thing that they can do because they don't manipulate the software. They don't make any changes to it, while IG2 and IG3, they do. So let's take a look at some controls from Control 16. As I mentioned, nothing belonged to IG1. They belong to IG2 and IG3, and we explained why earlier. Establish and maintain a secure application development process, and we're going to talk about application development process in a separate recording. Maintain a process to accept and address software vulnerabilities. Remember, we need to have vulnerabilities in a prior control. Well, establish and maintain a process to accept them and deal with them. Perform root causes on security vulnerabilities. Establish and manage an inventory of third-party software component. You want to know who are these third-party software component. Use up-to-date and trusted third-party software component. Establish and maintain a severity rating system and process for application vulnerabilities. Use standard hardening configuration template for application infrastructure. Separate production and non-production system. This is basically based on internal control. People who are producing and developing the system should not be the same. Train developers on application security concept and secure coding. Notice this belongs to IG2 and IG3. You have to have the funds. Apply secure design principles and application architect. Leverage vetted module or service for application security component. And we have few that belongs only to IG3. Implement code level security checks. Simply put, check your code, for security purposes. Conduct application penetration testing. We're going to talk about penetration testing shortly. Conduct threat modeling. Those belongs to IG3 because you have to have the resources to do that. Now let's take a look at Control 17, which is Incident Response Management. What do you have to do here? Establish a program to develop and maintain an incident response capability. What does that mean? It means when something happened, how are you going to respond? And specifically, after responding, you have to recover. Simply put, you have to have policies, plans, procedures, people, defined roles, train them, let them know how to communicate, to prepare once you have an incident to respond quickly to an attack. And here what we mean by responding quickly, also responding in terms of social media, the press, informing the stakeholders, people who are involved. So a robust cybersecurity strategy encompasses protection, detection, and when you are penetrated, you have to respond, then recover. So immature enterprises, means immature in sense of cybersecurity, often neglect the last two, response and recovery. Merely they focus on protection and detection without any thorough analysis of what happened. So effective incident response aims to identify, contain, and remediate, also understand the threat. You have to kind of see why did that happen? Because without fully understanding the incident, well, history would repeat itself. Without understanding the incident's nature and origin, defenders risk failing into a repetitive cycle of short-term fixes, because it's gonna repeat itself again and again. Now, as we all know, protection cannot be 100% effective. Therefore, you have to have a clear plan, because without a clear plan, even skilled team might face challenges in investigation. You have to prepare an incident response in reporting, in data gathering, in role allocation. Before something happens, you have to anticipate. Not because you have a response team, it means you are expecting an attack to happen. You want to assume it's going to happen and be prepared when that happens, how to respond. Legal procedures, you might have to notify regulatory agencies. You might have to notify clients, customers, so on and so forth. And communication for effective post-incident understanding and recovery, because your reputation could be damaged because of that. So you want to have a clear plan. Effective communication with stakeholders. Stakeholders is anyone that's affected is crucial for incident handling, along with detection, containment, and eradication, cleaning the system. So the leadership must understand, the people on the top, potential impact of cybersecurity event to prioritize business decision for remediation or recovery, considering factors like regulatory compliance. You might be involved with this. Considering factors like regulatory compliance involving HIPAA, disclosure norms, partner agreement, revenue, or mission effect. So simply put, the leadership must understand all of those all together. Also, what do we need to know about incident response management is we need to know how long the attacker been on the network before they attacked us. Well, this is called the dwell time, the period an attack onset to detection, how long it took us until we detect this. And this could extend days to months, allowing attackers to entrench and devise method for persistent access. The earlier we discover them, the better off we are and get them out. The duration is crucial, especially if we're dealing with ransomware, because the more time you give to ransomware, what they do, the attackers, they exfiltrate data. It means they take the data they deleted before they encrypt it. So this way you don't have a backup, making the attack more profitable, because even if you said, well, you can keep it, I have a backup, they know what they are looking for. They know you don't have the backup because they exfiltrate the data. They were able to lock it, delete it, lock it, and now you're at their mercy. Let's take a look at some safeguards for Control 17. Some controls for 17, it belongs to IG 1, 2, and 3. Let's go over those. Designate people to manage incident handling. Just let some people knows they're good in proper communication, proper networking. You need to know who these people are. Establish and maintain contact information for reporting security incidents. Who should we contact when something happened? Establish and maintain enterprise process for reporting incidents. We have a process. This belongs to 1, 2, and 3. What belongs to 2 and 3? Here some belongs to 2 and 3. Establish and maintain an incident response process. Maybe this is more advanced than the prior one. Assign key role and responsibilities. Be more specific, like IT, legal, information systems, so on and so forth. Define mechanism and for communicating during incident response. Who can, reveal information, who cannot. Conduct routine incident response exercises. Go ahead and try to kind of simulate an incident and how do we handle the response. Conduct post-incident review. Then look at what happened and see how well did we do. Like basically practicing for the real thing. And for IG3, you want to establish and maintain security incident threshold. And this belongs to IG3 because it's the most advanced. Let's take a look at Control 18, which is called penetration testing. Well, what is that? That's basically trying to kind of harm yourself, trying to ask your people, the people who work for the company, to do penetration testing, to test the system, see if the system breaks. Test the effectiveness and resiliency of the enterprise asset through identifying and exploiting weaknesses in control. Those control could be people, processes, and technology, and simulating the objective and action of an attacker. So simply put, some companies, what they do, they tell their people, like, go ahead, we want you to try to find weaknesses, and after you find them, try to exploit them. And the step of exploiting is when you are doing penetration testing, because given the ever-growing technological landscape and immersion attacker method, enterprises need regular testing further controls from various perspectives, including external and internal network. They need to test applications, system, and devices, and through different methods like social engineering. Try to trick your own employees into giving their information. Physical access trials. See if you can access the servers physically. See if some of your employees can do it. And the reason you're doing all of this to spot weaknesses and assess resiliency. This is what you're doing. This is basically the purpose of penetration testing. But specifically, what you're trying to do is 3 things. What you're trying to do is provide a compelling illustration of a potential attack. Like you're simulating an attack. Typically, to make sure the people in charge are aware, enlightening decision makers about the vulnerabilities within the organization. Because the hardest thing for cybersecurity team is to get a budget, is to get money for their effort, because cybersecurity is not a revenue generating division. It's basically like, why do we need to allocate money to them? You want to show them why. That's one one purpose for penetration testing. Also to ensure the defenses are functioning as intended. You want to verify that your defenses are working as expected. 3, to confirm that the appropriate defenses were established from the outset. You want to validate. So this is the purpose of penetration testing. Now, penetration testing is similar to vulnerabilities, but not like vulnerabilities. Similar. Vulnerabilities is looking for those weak points without doing anything. So penetration testing, unlike vulnerability testing, does not just identify weaknesses, because vulnerabilities, you identify the weaknesses. You're trying to exploit them to assess the potential business impact. What would happen? While vulnerability testing involves automated scanning, possibly with manual false positive checks, penetration testing demands greater human analysis, because now you're going through that human involvement, often using custom tools. You're using specific tools. However, vulnerability assessment frequently serves as the initial step for penetration testing. So usually what you do first, you check your system for vulnerabilities, which is you do so by automated scanning, possibly with manual false positives checks. Then once you find a weakness, you go ahead and you try to do the penetration testing. We also have something called the red team exercises. It's similar to penetration testing. It's exploit vulnerabilities, but differ in focus. They try to mimic specific attackers. It's called TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, to assess an enterprise defense against certain type of adversaries. Basically the same concept. As we said, it's akin to penetration testing. It's called the red team, just in case you saw the term. Let's take a look at some safeguards for Control 18. If you notice, we don't have any controls or safeguards for IG1 because it costs money, it costs resources to do this penetration testing. For IG2 and IG3, establish and maintain a penetration testing program. Perform periodic external penetration tests from the outside. Remediate penetration test finding. Whatever you find, you remediate. Validate security measures. Make sure it's working as expected. And this comes to IG3. Perform periodic internal penetration tests. And those are basically belongs to IG3. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from Farhat lectures. Let's take a look at this multiple choice questions from Farhat lectures. What primarily differentiate penetration testing from vulnerability testing? Let's start with A. Penetration testing is automated while vulnerability testing is manual. And I would say it's the opposite. Vulnerability testing is automated through scanning, but penetration testing would require effort by human individual involvement. B. Penetration testing identify vulnerabilities while vulnerability testing exploit them. No. First, you identify through vulnerabilities, and penetration testing will try to test them, exploit them. Also the opposite. So A and B are out. We're down to C and D. Penetration testing is used for red team exercise. We can't say that. We didn't say that. Penetration testing exploit vulnerabilities. That's right. They exploit them. They'll try to exploit them to assess the potential impact, what would happen, while vulnerability testing only identifies them. That is true. That's the opposite of B. So basically, hopefully, you're stuck between B and C, and first you have to find, exploit, then do the penetration testing. What should you do now? Go to Farhat lectures, look at additional MCQs. That's going to help you understand these concepts better. Good luck, everyone. Study hard. The CPA exam is worth it. It's a 20-30 year investment in your career. Invest in yourself. Good luck, and of course, stay safe.